Hi everyone. My name is Elizabeth. I'm from ELYOPE Accessibility and Inclusion, where we talk about everything to do with design and how we can use design to empower lives. This session today is where we're going to touch on the first thing that matters in design, which should have mattered when people started coming with ideas on designing for our built environment, for our products, for the human being. This should have been the initial thing that would have started like the seed, but apparently it hasn't been. And that is the person. So, what we're doing with ELYOPE is we're starting a digest where we're going to be bringing a few articles every few weeks. And we have a discussion panel like this one where we'll be discussing and bringing awareness and education to the public on certain things that matter and why as a person you should care about the designs of everything because you need to know if it's done for you. For today, we're going to touch on the first article that's called Don't Say Accessible Design, Say Better Design. So accessible design is a design where we're measuring the quality of access. So how someone is able to access something. So how is that design? How do we look at a design and how do we measure the accessibility of that design? So people are saying, well, actually, when we talk about accessibility, we are talking about all these different facets. So let's just say it's better design. It's what we need. This is an overall inclusive design that everybody needs. So that's the topic for today. So I think we have a few artists in the house and a few people who will come in and bring this conversation to what it needs to be. So we want to be as candid as we can. If you don't know something, just air it out and we'll be squashing it in this meeting. We'll be using two languages. So you hear every now and then we'll be putting in a bit of Shona, a bit of English because we're all bilingual like that. And we're going to have fun with it. Let's do a bit of an intro. So we'll start with Edna, and then we'll work our way around the room.
Hi, my name's Edna. You can call me Mutasa. And while you're talking about all of this, all of the schools I've gone to, they were not accessible for people that use wheelchairs. I just realized that now. But that's all I have to say.
Okay, we're going to squash into that as well.
I am Anesu, self-taught artist, future architect. So I'm hoping I'm gonna get the designs for my future career in this.
Hi, I'm Valerie. I am a nurse. So I'm hoping I get some designs for like our career and stuff, just like Anis was saying. And I'm willing to learn about a lot of things on this platform today.
Hello everyone. So I'm Takuzo Nashe Mwofani, and I'm someone who is interested in these accessibility things. I want to learn more about accessibility because there's a time when you meet up with people who will be struggling to roam around in town, like those people who use wheelchairs. So I want to know more about how can we design our cities, our towns, our homes so that it makes it accommodates all of us. It accommodates all those people.
Actually, now that we've said this, I think it will be good to hear from you guys. Have if any of at all, have anyone had the word accessibility, and where have you had it?
I heard it like in school. That's when I heard it. But then it was only because there's someone that came in to give a talk that used the wheelchair and the issues that they had to get in to come and give the talk at school. Which made no sense that they invited someone that used the wheelchair to come in to give a talk when they know the way it's designed. They literally had to go around the back of the school. So they couldn't enter through the front doors like everyone. They had to go behind the back of the school, and then they had to make a makeshift ramp for them to come in, and then make a makeshift ramp again for them to be able to go on the stage. So it was a whole mess.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And not to mention that's UK. Anyone else?
I work with patients every day. Accessibility comes with certain limitations, especially for disabled people. Why? Because they have certain areas that they're allowed and certain areas that they can't go because they can't have access to those facilities because sometimes they can't walk. They have to use a wheelchair. So they'll be like, no wheelchair-bound people to this zone. It's only able-bodied people to this zone. That's my view from
yeah. But have you guys heard from, like, you know, when you're trying to access website, have you seen kamwe ka sign so ka wheelchair kanenge kangori kachingolinga somewhere?
Yeah.
You're like, you're like, can we push this away?
Yeah.
I've seen that one. I've seen that one.
Honestly, as much as I knew about accessibility of the built environment, but I didn't know how it was incorporated in the digital world. So when I saw
Yeah.
Kasaini ka wheelchair, I knew it was the international symbol. But in my head,
Yeah.
for some reason, and this is why it's concerning for me, because it's an add-on. Like, if anyone has actually ever thought about it, quickly, they started going, oh, so how can we make our website accessible? Oh, so then with this little add-on thing. And what I love about, I know I'm an Apple fan. What I love about iPhone, and I'm sure probably a lot of phones as well, is they've actually made the accessibility of our phones embedded.
Easier.
I love that. Like,
Yeah.
I actually love that. And in my head, I'm like, why can't they do that with the websites? Like, surely it should be easy. So it's the same thing now when we're looking at the environment. Because again, the phone is an environment. Like, the digital world is an environment. How you
Yeah.
navigate it is an environment. So now, when we bring that to the physical environment, again, we have disability standards. We have all these different guidelines that are now an add-on to an architect. Like, unless you're talking of wanting to be an architect, they don't have that as part of their curriculum. They actually don't learn kuti munu anu design it. Say to me, it's like I'm amazed by it, because I'm thinking, so who are we designing for if we're not designing for us?
We've been talking about house, like home designs and stuff.
Exactly.
If you remember, there's this program we used to watch with this couple, the little couple that has dwarfism, and how they had to go the process of making their house that they bought to be more accessible for them by removing the standard size. You probably learn about this.
Oh, yeah.
Standardized size countertops are this height, sinks, this and that. But then they had to
Exactly.
then hire people who then specialize in that. But then it's like those people actually, they weren't taught about. They learned about it after they had a friend that had dwarfism. That came to them. They're like, "Can you help me? Because I actually cannot use my house."
Yeah. And it's this is something that is seen worldwide. Here in Australia, a lot of times people think, oh, because Australia has had this ongoing, I think for the past 12 years since we have had it in the legislative system, but it's still a process. Like, public still struggling to understand which accessibility chimbodichi. Like, why are we talking about it? And it's a lot of times when I bring the subject up, people are like, yeah, but that's a specialized area. Like, they're like, oh, but that's specialized. That has nothing to do with us. Yeah, you can talk about that when you're talking to people who are elderly and you're people who have disabilities, but not us. We have nothing to do with this. And I'm going, wow. The ignorance and just the idea of we have nothing to do with it. So what I'm hoping is we're going to touch on what is design, because I think it's important that we identify before we touch on the accessibility side. But design yacho chi, what, let's start. Anes, so I know Anes, you're hoping to be an architect, so I'm going to throw this right at you. What do you think design is? Because I know you're also an artist.
Design is, I think it's something which you create with your own creatives in the head, like, and you think it's gonna work, and it's in a unique way, because you're the one who will be designing it and you make something out of it. That's how I think design is. Like, it's a broad word, which encompasses different things, because like you can design cups, homes and stuff. It's a broad thing, but it's someone who thinks about it and thinks it's gonna work in the world or something in a unique way.
I want you to expand on that a bit. So when you're saying kuti munhu anenge achingofunga kuti yeah, it's going to work, what is that? Like, tell us, what do you think that is? Anyone who knows what he's trying to get at, just jump in.
Yeah. Pakungofunga ipapo ndikutofungawo basi.
I think it kind of goes in terms of like, let's say, okay, unless to like an example could be like someone designing cups. So I think it comes more from Shanichi. What's the intention behind the designer waiter? So most people could be like, okay, I could design a cup, but there's so many different types of cups. Okay, most people, able-bodied people, and then because my cups are more weight to help some people to actually help with the dexterity. When my cup it is, I guess what is certain not the regular handle. I don't like using the word normal because that word does not qualify, because who's to say what's normal? Not like, you know how my handles, majority of the people that design my cups, and a handle of which the idea must have come from someone who designed it and said, oh, the functionality of this is ideal. But then obviously with some other people that have other issues with the grip and all that stuff, all these other designs have come in where they now use my handles are angled a certain way to help people like arthritis or like MS to help them. So I constantly say to grip to
also to help them with the motor skills.
Yeah. But in Nini, I have an issue with that. Hear me out, because I think the design of the cup, of a standard cup, should change, and it should actually accommodate all those differences, because like what we're saying is, who is the average user? And if you are creating something for an average person, this average person, in my understanding about an average person munane disability, whatever that is, right? Because disability incorporates a whole lot, like it's physical, it's also mental health, it's intellectual, it's autism, all these neurodiverse other abilities that come under the umbrella term disability, right? In the world, we're talking 1 in 5 of us has some sort of a disability.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah. And then we're saying, okay, so this is 1 in 5 of us. That's a big number. So then we look at the elderly. The elderly, again, 1 in 5 of us. So now it makes 2 in 5 of us, right? Not that we have any elderly in the house here, but like it just means 2 in 5 of us are considered part of the average person. It's like a standard cup has to change. Like whatever we call the standard cup needs to change. So that's where the part where, as much as vanowedzera vanotanga kufunga of how can we now make this cup more adaptable and specific to an individual. But okay, before we get to that, let's be deliberate in how we actually design the first thing that we consider standard. Then when we think about that, okay, now when we're specializing or when we're thinking of putting something, okay, it's specific to that person, it doesn't take too much time and it doesn't take too much thinking, because you've already thought about that for the standard person.
You know what? It goes on to like Zango shouted out before about how people are ignorant to some things unless if they affect them. That's what I think it's the pattern in terms of like looking at design. It's like, unless if they actually see or have experienced or they know someone, but so like I can give an example. Patogara Suska, Liz knows about this. Patogara, it's not designed in a way that's accessible for yeah. Teenage steps to touch plastic like this. Shiripa door. Put him not pinned the other day, someone I deliver a donor. And this is someone I should add able bodies and one so far. Let's all every time Mambo put it to an Akira or kind of they say that a wheelchair for like a walk or something. It takes a while for her to invest to feel comfortable enough to hold on to the rail. That one step because I made it was it's and this is UK and you think you're like, oh, it's a more progressive, it's a Western world,
Country,
it's more progressive,
yeah.
but it's like
and we see it even here. That's why I'm saying it's easy kutongofunga oh yeah, in the developed countries everybody thinks about design now. No, it's still a struggle.
And I think the problem is with the society, because I think with the society actually messed up property. When it comes to designing, people they don't consider the disabled people. But don't consider us the able-bodied people they can access this. But what about the people who can't access? Because even like now, when we're disabled, majority population and you have another access to a lot of things and a lot of services, and some of them they can afford these things, but they can't buy these things because people market and stuff. So I think mindset manufacturers edu and stuff dealt with.
I know it's and it's a big problem. It's big. It's
exactly
big. Yeah.
I think the problem.
I also kind of feel like some people forget they could also become disabled at any point. Like it's so real because like an example I can give is myself. Years before, I didn't know because I have fibromyalgia. This condition actually affects, like, I'm in pain basically 24/7. Sometimes I can't like get up. Sometimes I have to stay in bed. Sometimes could drive. I've had to train Maoko and drive. I drive automatic and want to drive a manual because of the fact that I need too many maneuvers and stuff like that. It's like I've had to be trained. Oh, can I rock around? I have to use this one. It's like those things that people don't think about because Amuka, and then they get on with what they do. But for the rest of us, it's not like that. It's literally like, okay, I have to get up and be like, okay, I have to do a quick assessment. Okay, what kind of pain am I in today? How am I gonna go about the day? Simple things because I know I don't know Keza. Sometimes. Sometimes. It's an issue. So it's like those small things, people can look at them and be like, nah, that has nothing to do with accessibility. It actually does because every day without thinking because it doesn't, once again, affect them.
Yeah.
I think the problem starts with who designed these things. Because if someone who doesn't have a disability designed, how can you know that when your angle is hitting, you cannot open the tab?
It's
in
a way.
The thing is,
yeah.
There's one thing that I noticed. Like at our church. My bathrooms and my toilets are kune 1 year even very disabled, but kune 20 even very able-bodied. Kokana kukavanhu vari disabled vakawanda vadaumira muqueue vanofanira kumira muqueue vese kusvika 1 apedzi tombomirira mumwe 20. It's not fair actually.
And that's something chekuti you like what you're saying. It's very true. Even I had an issue, right, where someone was cleaning. So the cleaning time, my toilets, right? So cleaning time was every 4 hours, I think. And this is for all toilets. And then, like you're saying, there's one toilet, inaccessible. And then the rest of the bank of toilets is standard, right? And in my head, I'm going, the majority of the times, the toilet, people with disabilities, is always dirty. It's always like there's water everywhere. It's constantly dirty. Why are we having to put 4 hours for the standard toilet that have 20 of them? And then there's one of these that is constantly dirty. Like, why can't you make an effort to clean these toilets every like 2 hours or something, or 1 hour?
2 hours, yeah.
Because it's insane. So with the ratio my toilets, I mean, here's the thing. Here we have my standards, like we have my premises standards at Shandisa to determine how many toilets, how many accessible toilets can you have in a bank of toilets in a building. But still, it's in a way like, okay, Mwesa one, but we're encouraging builders, designers and architects to actually put more toilets instead of Kwisawa, because it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you have one? Like this other building, it's a big building, and then you enter one toilet on ground floor. And I'm going, yeah, of course you are taking your minimum standard compliance, but why aren't you thinking? Like, why are you not even thinking, this doesn't make any sense? Why not just two toilets? So it's the design, yeah, it's because we have never, I don't think for a long time, even if we look in the history, a lot of whether elderly or with disabilities, they've always been institutionalized. So they've never been integrated into society. They've always been taken as these special people that are then put on the side and then catered. And then it's just we're the human beings. It's weird.
And they're being shunned from the community.
Yeah.
There was a documentary I was actually watching, which it's a sad documentary, but it points out the like important thing,
the reality.
Because it's like people looked at anyone, right, group physically disabled or mentally disabled in terms of mental health and all that stuff. They were all looked as a burden. So, life the way it should be. Yeah, but it's an inconvenience. Like the way to deal with it, that's what to say. It's like the whole thing, segregation thing is like it's just ridiculous. Because like even Panyama toilets, like okay, some of the people I'm probably thinking toilets, they usually think her toilets here disabled people. Talking about 2 more cubicles, Saka we have more space because the accessible toilet it's bigger. And the things, the materials that I needed to make that toilet, there's a lot more things. And then it's like, but why? It's not like I really try and understand. It's like, why can you not see Tony as much as okay, fine? Mutasa should like the disabled people, wheelchair, this and that and whatnot. But then it's like, okay, you have people like me that people look at while I'm just walking. They'll say, oh, you're fine. Oh, you have no problems. And then like the way I struggle to go to the toilet, it's not even funny that I have to use the disabled toilet because the regular toilet, a Panama handrails, there is nothing to support me if I actually am to fall down. There is nothing to support me in those toilets at all. And then they're like this.
Yeah. Can anyone be a designer? Because in a way.
I think anyone can be a designer.
Because I highly think there is a space to co-create these things. Like we're saying, majority, if we look into the history, not even a long past, right? Like we're talking recent history. We still have architects to this day and age. We still have designers to this, like now, who are still designing without thinking about those marginalized, those extremities,
Exactly.
And it's worrying, and I'm glad that Anes, you're part of this panel, because it's something that I do want you to really think about as you get into this space. Could you need to think about who are you designing it for? Who is your average user? Because average user, we are not going to have people institutionalized because you guys end up designing something chisinga shandisike.
Exactly.
We can't keep doing that. Yeah. You're being put on the spot, but we're just saying.
So I think that this thing, like more empathic, or she's in their shoes. Toilet. How will I use it? Lokwanise rinombogara pauche otombodai kutomboona kuti ndakafamba apa ndodonhe kana kutomboita like get out of the box there kana kutombotanga watomboconsulta munhu unokwana kutaura naye umubvunza like what detail matonati maphysical ake anoremerwa nawo nomuremera nezvese machallenges anoita in her daily lives obvaona kuti saka vanotogadzira chinhu iye anozorincambasa sei hazvizvo zvichida kuita kuti kunewe maheights kana even tingati chiko zvemaweights kuti uone kuti kune madoendos anorema kaya
The problem with you, my architect, the problem you tend to be very expensive. Can change the custom made.
Oh.
No, are disabled. Ada kuitwa chinu, auntie. The same budget and you tend to say, no, this is expensive. We can't do this. Why is it every time when are disabled can order chinu? It's always times 2 the price of a standard person. It's supposed to be lower. Yes.
I high five on that. It's not even a joke. Do you know, I was reading the International Association of Architects or something like that. In 2019, they released their first article on affordable, accessible housing. 2019.
Yo.
So it's like, oh, so yeah, now we have to think about how we can make this affordable. Like, wow. In my head, architects have been men for a long time, and I feel like they've been designing for men. for the standard person who is a man.
That was very true. Because them cubicles are very tiny, and I'm I'm not standing to pee. I'm not standing.
Yeah, so in my head, I'm like, it's gotta change. But what we are also looking at as for ELYOPE is how can we create designs that are co-opted, co-created, co-designed, where we actually then get people, different people, right? Where we have an inclusive reference group of people with different abilities that come in and influence a design. So
Like
instead
a
of now,
for design.
yes, exactly. So we're actually addressing that to say, okay, how can we have that reference group, that talking group here, and discuss before we're even putting the design on paper. But and discuss ideas and be like, we think this is gonna work, that's not gonna work. And we're talking of anything here. It's not just the muduri, but even like we're saying, even good design like it matters. Good design it's like the small things that probably you pass by. No, someone actually had an idea once upon a time.
Even my door handles, some of them akarebesa for some people. Anofana kuitwa cater kuti epamsoro evanhu vari standard nevanhu vasiri standard.
It's like all those things we need to start thinking kuti how we were defining the word standard needs to change. The word standard needs to be inclusive. It shouldn't be exclusive. It shouldn't be, oh, we're designing and then it was okufunga after.
It should be for everyone. Like she said earlier, it's too heavy. Motor skills are active. What about the person as motor skills are active?
Yeah.
Obviously, I took for social plastic cup. My sippy cups use plastic and stuff, which is not fair.
Oh, yeah. And when we're touching on that right there, we're even addressing issue dignity. A lot of my problems that we face with my areas are city accessible or as now good design or with the person, the user in mind. A lot of these things are not visa. Like that dignity is like thrown in the bin.
Yeah, because munumukuruka arikunwa kasipi cup kadiki because asukwanisa kudesign cup ya inoenderana ne stature yake ne status yake asikukwaniswa kuitwa izvozvo, which is very very unfair. Anenge akutofananidzwa netuvana twedu tuma3-year-olds and stuff. Questions zvoni inwira munhu tuvana twacho mazuva ano futi twakutoramba totaudza kuti no, especially my son atodza mama, I can't drink that cup. Can I have a cup here darker and stuff?
Yeah. And I watched this video. It's another country in Africa where the girl had to actually like move herself to the toilet because the toilet that was deemed accessible in a rural area. I mean, here's the thing. I give them props for trying, for actually thinking about it and putting it in place. But Muskano was using a wheelchair and she couldn't actually go from the normal path of travel to the to inside the toilet. So her wheelchair couldn't get into the accessible toilet, the disabled toilet. So she had to leave the toilet. Yes, she had to leave her toilet panze and then get off the wheelchair and literally move. Yes, literally move her way. Actually, jidonza in achinda toilet, and I was
crawling into the toilet.
I was just like,
apa do you know kune vanhu vari that clumsy vasina utsanana wekuti vanongoitira weti chero pasi. She's not forced kutsika weti yacho iyoyo nekuhembe dzake dzoendwa and stuff, which is very unfair.
Yeah. We watched on LinkedIn the other day. I came across again another lady who was going on a holiday, and mundege makanga wana sit. Vakamupinza initially with one of their, I don't know what do they call them, yes, those very narrow ones, to be able to go to her seat, because her seat usually she gets sit really paduze in like an exit or pane more leg room. But for that time, because the plane was full, seat Rakawana was inside, so they were able to get her in. But Vamupinza now mid-flight, like Amudenga, they didn't have that chair. So chair yanga yamwendesa kutsitrake, they didn't have that mid-flight. And she wanted to go to toilet because it was a long haul flight. So she wanted to go to toilet. And the flight attendant had the audacity to tell her to say to her, you should have brought a pad. You should have brought a diaper. And we're talking a whole grown-up who was just needing to use a toilet.
You know what? That same thing, I've seen it happen in hospital in here. I was on a shift, and then one of the like guess what, she in a side room because of she infection control because I'm C diff. Saka iye manje aivane chi because room angari guys na toilet saka yaunza chi accommode in there with a disposable line and everything. Saka minoti ni staff angari koma ne room nakakana utosa chi line and then paida customer checks chi mama patients mukadzi version chi kuna chi no one of the staff chi I need to go to toilet, can you chi bring my commode, but turn around Ramson, you can go in the bed. She literally turned around, I told her you can go in the bed, and I had to when I literally was like, you need to make a complaint about this. And she was like, no, it's fine. Because it's not fine. Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing okay about this. It's like even trying to tell my not to it's like you trying to tell Abigail, I'm like, yeah, you can go in your knickers. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I was like,
so we are having a lot of issues where this whole need to really consider how our spaces are designed or how we can help. I mean, here's the thing. I like, to me, right, a plane is another good example, right? It's like those narrow aisles. Are we gonna get rid of them anytime soon? No, probably never. So what's the solution to that? Like if you're not gonna have that narrow wheelchair like in the plane, and then you can only use it just because mundege. But I
think what they should do, I'm in first class mundege.
Yeah.
So that section even very disabled, first class.
I think so too. Because to me, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you just allow anyone to sit anywhere? Because per ground, you are able to wheel them into that station, and then you forget about what happens between the time they get on to
if they can make if they can make Nigrini, the space more business class, more first class, anti-mondege, but it's a
They should
space.
make space.
But very comfortable. Also, charts are very disabled. It doesn't make sense actually.
It
So
doesn't.
what is space?
Basically.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
just this guy I follow on TikTok. He is a wheelchair user himself. So like, I told her how the process of him flying goes. Like when you started talking about flying, I started thinking about that video because actually, like the first thing they prioritize when they get people on the plane, they get Shiva disabled in first because there's no one in on enter in. But then he's the last person to leave as well. And like actually the way he's had to resolve the issue at toilet, he has to use the catheter every single time he's flying. Like every single time he's flying, he has to use the catheter, of which that's not even safe. I don't even think that's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just risking himself to infection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a hard topic. I think in terms of how it's we're just going over it, how many things that we have just normalized and we have just learned to be like, oh, that ndo zvazviri, like ndo zvazviri, and then we start going, but who said that? Like what Takuzwa said, who actually said this should be how things should be? Like who said this? Because that person is us. Like there's no someone out there who is not us. It's us. We designed this. So now we're having to cope with our poor design, but we actually don't even take the time to talk about it like we're doing now. And I'm very grateful to have you guys on here because it's something where people actually take time to talk about it. To go, but why are we keeping on creating ziva? It's not going to be good down the line. Why are we keeping on doing this? Just because we want to cut the budget, just because someone says they don't want to, like the investor or whoever it is, they don't want to pay towards that. Why are we agreeing to that? It's such an interesting topic. And the other part that I always find interesting, again, when we talked about the plane, ichivane more space for people and money. The other topic that came in mind is the designer products. The designer glasses, the designer handbag, the designer clothing.
Exactly.
So it's like that there are people who think about design, who want to actually produce a really good design.
Yeah.
But it's bloody expensive. Like you can't even afford it. Like anything to label a designer. It's like so imagine if the space was being labeled a designer space. You would know what
Yeah, that's true.
we can't afford because it means munhu atogara pasi akafunga and they took more years to come up with this concept and design.
pamusoro mangu ndakati like kana developed country inenge yenyu yozoisa article like 2019 because Zimbabwe iri third world.
It's a third world country.
Imagine. Not even country yedu. We're not even talking about nation here. I said international association of architects.
Ndofana achitaura kakuti like ukuona kakuti kwenyu chaiko kuri developed havasati vakwanisa kuketa vese, and then here hautoone madisabled acho atori deprived zvekutoti haatokwanisi kutofamba kuti kana mada kutoita kutoita kana nyika meeting moti madisabled ese taakukuskulai kune zvinhu zvada kuitwa zvekuti mukwanise kuaccessibility nokuti even mika this thing yekutoti kune matoilet emadisabled echika handitozvizive kana kuti chirema chinoita imba
That's true.
but I think vanhu vatori deprived kutoti vanototora like, but I heard something kuti hanzi kumacompanies kuti vakaisa munhu ari disabled anenge anoisa a certain discount inoiswa kucompany yacho nokuti vanenge vachishanda munhu ari disabled. Chandakatoona chitochi acknowledge ndikati which is something good kuti vanhu
kuma insurance companies when kuma insurance companies vanhu veinsurance vaivai vane certain pamatax avo anobhadhara maannual tax aya handi vanopiwa certain discount. That's why vachiemploya vanhu vakawanda vari disabled havasi kuitira mwoyo muchena, but it's for their own good kuti rebate yavo itwe cut off, ndozvavanenge vachiitira
kuona manje. Saka that mindset iyoka kuibvisa ka it's a pretty hard journey to swallow nokuti panenge pakatoipa not like joiner city wakadoita saka mamwe maelevator acho ari kudenga obva aita mastairs anenge aya ekufamba anonzi maexcavator obva aita mamwe mastairs acho ari hard obva anzwa saka disability plan yacho apo painge iri papi chaipo chaipo munhu anokwanisa kupinda ke but kuti azoaccessibility zvinhu zvakawanda hachakwanisi. I've
never seen a bathroom yevanhu vari disabled in Harare. I've never seen a bathroom. Everywhere my public toilets I've never seen them.
Havatoiti like kuketa like disabled.
Zvakafanana parutara pajoiner city pane marestaurants paipai pane maescalator aya hapakwanisi kuti munhu ane wheelchair apinde. Inonzi the other elevator chokwa inonhingira kune mastairs saka munhu haakwanisi kuenda kumusoro kuti anodyiwa nevamwe, atongori limited kuti anongosara pasi oigirwa chikafu chake pasi, vamwe ndo vachasvika kumusoro, which is unfair.
Even chiro maroads chemo hasana mbona like disability robot yekuti kuti nyatsoona kuti pakunzi apa panomira vanhu vari disabled vakamira robot vakura handisati
even aisle laindira kuti vanongofamba nemawheelchair avo vari free hakuna
hakutorina.
So that's something where I think having these conversations, it matter because we're then indicating and highlighting those issues and what can we do about it. And having ELYOPE in Zimbabwe as well is where we're actually going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on how can we help the government as well as the private to look at these issues. How can we do, because I know there's a lot of new infrastructure that's happening. We have a lot of new construction and whatnot. So it's like, wait, honestly, like I wish I could just hold them and make them stop. To go, please just stop. Let's get back to the drawing board. We have accessibility in this space. This problem. Because it's reality. We are still building and we are not thinking about accessibility when already we know, like Kunoko Australia, they've been at this, the advocacy and everything has been ongoing for the past 30 years. 30 years, that's how long it has taken for the government to then really take accessibility serious. To go, okay, we have to really legislate this. Otherwise, no one is going to take it serious. So it becomes a responsibility for this building certifier, for the property developer, for the urban planner, for like everyone has a responsibility to make sure access yenjimbo yaitwa considered fully. But as long as people are taking it in a sense yekuti, oh yes, atishazoita edu kana pazoita munhu ane disability, and you think you can be disabled mangwana.
Exactly.
That's true.
Literally. And you know what? Last thing on Google, they started doing this badge thing. If you are, they're doing it as a form of inclusivity in terms of if it's a Black-owned business or LGBTQ and all that stuff. I feel like they need to make that wheelchair accessibility or whatever accessibility our location it should also be part of like if let's say when I start Google I just thought it was like dentist don't go across the road. No one that uses a wheelchair can go there because one has stairs and I struggle with the stairs. No one that uses a wheelchair can go there at all. It's not even possible. So I'm thinking like some websites they actually now like Google needs to make this thing to Google website. Pano find our rights or website that's okay. Location wheelchair accessible.
People assume kuti a place wheelchair accessible, it makes it accessible. So when you're talking of accessibility, We are talking of the physical, which is mobility,
Yeah.
right? We're talking of the sensory, which is someone who is blind, someone who is deaf.
Yeah.
They are also in that category in terms of when we're talking of accessibility. We're talking of someone and mental health,
Yeah.
dining for the mind,
Mm-hmm.
how someone interacts in the environment in terms of what is going on, like neurology. So we
Yeah.
hear words like neurodiverse, where we're looking at people with intellectual or autism or on the autism spectrum.
Tiri papa nye autism apa. Do you know kuti in Zimbabwe, a lot of people don't know kuti autism chi. Because they don't even know kuti the difference between mwana Down syndrome and mwana on
Yeah.
autism. They don't even know why. Because apana kambapa education. Vanongoti munhu wese ane that condition mu Down syndrome haana kukwana. But kuti vanzwisisa kuti zvinenge zvichifamba sei, munhu ano understand zvinhu zvakati to a certain extent. People don't understand what autism is, especially autism in Zimbabwe. No one knows. Tikada kuti namashise kana matauns atiri. Tikada kuti tibvunze vanhu kuti what is autism ka? Blank, zero.
Yeah, yeah,
Handizivi.
yeah.
Ndikutoenzera pano.
Yes, and you know,
Because I noticed there's a lot of things, guys. If I'm to think of, not even to say like, yeah, here it's expectation, like the schooling education system, blah blah, it's better and all this stuff. But there's a lot of gaps in education in terms of like what they prioritize on teaching people. It's not inclusive at all. They look at it as black and white, and it's like that's not how the world is.
so with you, Anesu, honestly, trust me, majority of people are like you. They don't even know.
That's true.
They have no idea. And for Valerie, she probably knows it because she's in healthcare. So it's something that she's always coming across. But for the general person, you are finding Kuti, they'll be like, and then because they don't understand, brain is always categorizing. So because you are not understanding, so what is this? Brain are going to bet to the side.
Exactly. And the other thing is, vamwe vacho vanotoziva zveautism ka, vamwe vanoziva zveautism vanenge vachitoziva because vanenge vaita mwana ane autism, votozonzi mwana wenyu ari autistic, ane autism kuchipatara. Otherwise vakasatongodaro havatozivi.
Saka, it's something chekuti, that's why we feel it's good we talk about this. We have people that like you get be educated. Like right now, AIDEE. After this, you can then go and Google, right? And go and look it up and go, what is autism? So it's something chekuti we don't have to know these things just because mwana azoita autism or waita hama yaita autism ndopa kutanga kuzofunga kuti saka chimboti chi. These are things zvakangofanana ne how you know diabetes, right? How you know high blood pressure. You should know about autism. You should know about it.
Zvakafanana nekuno kuAfrica. People don't know the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. But chinhu chimwe chete.
Hey!
You don't know.
So it's something chekuti sometimes because you don't know, and because chinozoita worse is you don't know and then you are designing. Anyway, I think it would be good if we can wrap up. This has been such a really good conversation, and I'm hoping we can do more of this. I'm enjoying doing this with you guys, so I'm really hoping you can come around again. When has any last words that they want to share, feel free. But otherwise, we can call it a day. Yeah.
We can call it a day.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. It's just been so amazing, and I'm looking forward to this. We're going to do more of that.